Hey everybody, welcome back to the Miser's Guide to Evony. In this consultation video, we're going to be looking at another account. It is a Keep 36 account at 1.6 billion power, and we're going to be going through all of the elements of this account to see where they can improve. So at 1.6 billion power, there's not a lot of troops. So an easy thing to talk about is troop count and where we should be focusing there. So let's start by going into troop details. So looking at the troop count right here, I can see that they've started to work on tier 14. It looks like only 3 of them have been unlocked. So one of the priority there is going to be unlocking that 4th one, which is Siege. You definitely want that additional layer, and you want to start to build up the 14s because it is pretty limited at the moment. You've got a decent amount of cavalry, but your archers and your ground, they're pretty limited. You have no siege yet, so I would definitely prioritize unlocking that tier 14 siege and working to get some tier 14 siege as well. Let's start by getting that up to like 1 million of each troop, and that should be a good place to start off. Your tier 13 look decent. Looks like your layers are a little bit small. I'd like to see those increase to about 1 million of each. Like, you should have more of the tier 12 archers for sure. Yeah, layers are definitely something to work on down here. A lot of players as well would be working on your tier 1 defense. You aren't really quite there yet. I would probably, before you go into that as a small account, I'd probably work on the getting that tier 14 done first, and then maybe dip into a tier 1 defense, because at a smaller keep level like this, that's probably your best bet in terms of defending. And then you could work on either your tier 1 ground or your tier 1 cavalry and boost that up. And we'll talk about that when we get into your wall defense general, because it looks like you're not like a massive spender, maybe a little bit. You're VIP 16, but in terms of competitiveness with other players, I mean, you're well below somebody that spends a ridiculous amount on this game. So your best bet is probably to work on your lower tier defense. But I would, yeah, like I said, I definitely prioritize getting that tier 14 done so you have a decent amount of top end layer, and then you can start to work on your T1 ground or cavalry, whichever one you decide to go with. Okay, let's stay on topic. I'm going to go over to your wall general, and we'll take a look at your wall general, because if we're considering doing something like a tier 1 defense, then we got to make sure that you are adequately setting that up with your wall general so that it makes sense. So I want to see what kind of refinement you have on your wall general. Now, I'm not expecting you to be perfectly refined on your wall general yet, because you don't have the troops to really back that up at the moment. Did I skip over it? No, I'm going to go to military. Okay. A lot of duty stuff. Assistant wall, so you have George Dewey as your assistant, and you have Shajar as your main. So obviously that's not intentional. So I'm wondering, who is your main wall defense general? I don't see a lot of wall generals. You're probably using Leonidas as your main. Well, it's only 3 million power, so maybe not. How about your Dewey? Your Dewey was probably normally your main. You have Leonidas as your assistant, and that is perfectly fine. Yeah, that's what I'm guessing you're doing, because your George Dewey has full specialty worked out and it has gear equipped. And you have Leonidas down here who has limited gear. So what I would recommend here, instead of what you're doing, like if you're going to put Shajar on your wall in the short term for the production boost and the warehouse boost, that's fine. But Shajar should not be your main defense general, especially when she has no gear equipped. So you'd be wanting to use George Dewey as your main and Shajar as your assistant. And that way, like when you're joining PvP situations like Battlefield or just World PvP or whatever you decide to do, you just swap out your assistant general and put Leonidas on. And that way you'll have Leonidas's buffs and you won't have to worry about the equipment and so on. So right now, George Dewey is there as your assistant defense general, but all of this equipment that you have on him is having absolutely no effect. The only thing you're getting out of the general is his specialty and his skill books. Even the dragon is not being utilized. So definitely have George Dewey as your main defense general, and then put your Shajar and Leonidas in a swapping rotation depending on what you're doing in the game. Let's take a look at George Dewey's gear, because I'm assuming that he is your main usually. So you've got some Achaemenidae, you got 2-piece Achaemenidae. You got these two. And there's like very little or no refines on any of those. So that is something to work on for sure. I mean, you got to refine your gear, especially on something important like a wall general. You absolutely need to do that. Even if the Achaemenidae like here you're planning to replace them at some point with Choreo, still, while you're using it, it should be refined. You got to absolutely refine. So if you're going to be, like I said, going towards a tier 1 trap, which would be a good idea for your size and your development, then what you're going to be wanting to grab are refinements that are the whole number kind, not percentage based. And the reason for that is percentage based is better for higher tier troops because they get more benefits since it's percentage based off of larger numbers. But the whole numbers are going to be benefiting all those lower tiers. So pretty much anything tier 12 down to tier 1 are going to get more benefit out of whole numbers than they would out of percentages. And there's also the benefit of debuffs, right? Debuffs that are coming your way from whoever's attacking you. They're going to reduce your percentage-based buffs, but they won't reduce your whole number buffs. So with those considerations, you definitely want on your wall general to have a lot more whole number buffs. So you're looking for like ground troop attack or siege machine attack or those kind of things, but with a actual number rather than percentage. So those are definitely things to be working on. Your civilization gear, you got 3-piece Achaemenid. Your civilization gear, you got some good choices here. Choreo is great for defense general. You got 3 pieces of that. If you can get that to 4-piece, you'll get your 4-piece bonus, and then you can do 2-piece Achaemenid. That would be very useful. But that's money spent, so that's completely your choice. But in terms of refinement, I don't see right now any refines on any of this gear that is worth keeping. These are not bad. These are not bad. They are percentage based, but they're very high numbers. So I'd probably keep those for now until you fully go into a trap build, and then I would not even get rid of these. I would just put on a new piece of gear and keep this to the side and work on whole numbers and swap that in when it's better than this. But don't replace these. These are pretty solid. But other than that one piece, you have no refinement on any of this gear that is worth keeping. So start to convert that to whole number defense, and that will definitely help in making it so that enemies take a lot more damage when they are attacking you. Now, you're only 1.6 billion, so it's pretty hard to defend against even a solo attack from a strong player, but at least that will get you pushed in the right direction. Your Leonidas, the gear on Leonidas doesn't really matter, but that's a very solid combo. Dewey and Leonidas together make a very solid combination, but you are going to want to work on his specialty as well when you do have the rune stones to make that happen, and the two of those together will be pretty good. Let's look at your main PvP generals. At your development, I'm going to assume that your generals are not fully built before I even go in and look at them. I don't think they would be, but we're going to take a look anyway. First, let's check your presets just to make sure I'm getting the right generals. Archer, well, they're all equipped on like duty, it looks like, so I can't even see them. So for Cav, you got Roland. For the Siege, you got the Siege icon. This is just like a layer preset, maybe. Okay, that might be just for healing or something, or adding layers. Okay, we'll start with the one that we know. So your cavalry guy is Roland. And I'm going to have to, I don't like that it doesn't let you click through there. Okay, let's go take a look at Roland. Okay, Roland, gear is pretty weak. You're 3.3 million power on Roland, so that tells me, I mean, I can see Ares gear, which is fine, but just from that power, I can tell it's not refined. You got very low refines here. You've got mounted troop attack, but this is one of the tricky things with refinement. My guess here is you were refining and you're like, oh, I got mounted troop attack. It's only 15.8, but I think I'll keep it and I'll continue. When you do that, you end up spending a lot more gems. My recommendation with refining is you want to be very, very picky for the first two stats. So if you're not getting like near the top end of what you want in terms of refining, then you should just skip it. Even if it's 15.8, it's not worth keeping. It's just not high enough. I clicked specialty. I meant to do click, view, refine. Okay. So for Ares, it goes up to 25%. So you should be clicking refine, and for that first one, I would take nothing less than 23% mounted troop attack. If you get 23.8, keep it, lock that in. But if you get anything less than that, it's not worth keeping. And then for your second one, after you've locked that first one in, it's going to start to cost gems. So then at that point, you'd want to go into maybe slightly less picky on what you're going to take, maybe like 22 and above. But you want to keep really high numbers, because as soon as you go into this, like 15.8, 10.3, 16, then when you are trying to get that last one, it's going to be costing so much gems to just refine. You've got 742,000 refining stones. So you are definitely capable of re-rolling this and just being super picky, getting like a 24 or 25% mounted troop attack to start off. And overall, your refinement can improve drastically. Like you can redo that and definitely get higher numbers here. Courageous Dragon Ring. I would like, this isn't really a ring for PvP. This is more for like bosses and the double item drop rate. So if you're going to use Roland for PvP, you should swap this to like a Baybars, make him an Ares ring that has march size, or put on some civilization stuff if you have it, and then refine the heck out of that so you have high mounted attack on that one as well. This is not bad. This is a lot better. So you've got the Ares helmet. You got 23.8 with a max of 25, so that's looking good. Your mounted troop HP, 1966. That one looks pretty good. Yeah, that one's really good. So the first three, definitely keepers. And then you can re-roll for the fourth. So this one looks a lot better. This week, you need to redo that whole thing. This one is maybe that mounted troop defense. The very first one is worth keeping. And maybe the last one as well. It's a little bit lower than I would normally go with for starters. But, I mean, it's close enough that you can probably just keep those two and re-roll the next. This one is really weak as well. So I would focus on getting those attacks done and finish off the HP ones, and then work on defense as well. And then your general will be a lot higher than it is currently. Yeah, these are... I mean, a lot of your power for your general is a result of lower refinement, like 375,000 for your Ares armor. That should be closer to 450 if it was refined very well. And I think you have one that's closer to that. Yeah, see, like the Ares helmet that's done significantly better is about 450. So that's an indication of just low refinement. And when you have 6 of these things at 450, your general is going to be a lot higher in power. And power is just an indicator. It doesn't really matter, but you need those buffs to be worked out a little better. March speed, march size, and mounted troop defense. I don't know who your assistant is, but I'm hoping that you're covering the HP as well. If Roland can even take the HP, I don't know. All right, so let's look at ground. I think I saw Elise. Let's take a look. Yeah, and you're starting to work on your specialty with Elise. So my guess is this is your actual ground general. You've got 2 pieces of civilization gear. So you've got freedom. That's okay. The refinement. Yeah, so you've got, it's the same thing, right? The civilization is not something where you can mess around with the refinement and get something okay and just have another piece. Like, it's a permanent piece. This one is not going away. So when you're refining this, you want to take refining stats that are near max, because there's no just making another piece. This is the one you're stuck with. So all of these, they're purple, and that looks great, but they're just not good enough. You should be taking things that are closer to 30%, closer to 2,800 plus HP. Those are what you would want to keep on that. So it could definitely be refined better. Same thing here, like the refining on the bracers is just not high enough for civilization gear. You're losing out a lot in terms of buffs. And yeah, it's pretty much the same. Like your refinement is really what's pulling your general back. Refinement is such a huge element in terms of PvP. So you just got to make sure that refinement is done well. Your general choice is perfect, and I don't see anything wrong with any of the skill books. Like, I don't think I would use ground troop speed. I don't think it does anything at all. But depends on who your assistant is and what skill books you have. March size would be more effective there. You want to make sure that your general, as far as compatibility goes, you want to always have your HP, attack, defense, march size for pretty much every PvP general. And in the case of like siege and archers, you want to have the range bonus on as well. You started to work on the specialty. I wonder who your assistant is. I don't want to unequip all your stuff and check it out, but I don't know. I'm not sure who you're using. Okay, let's take a look at your archer, which would be Electra. Yeah, looks like that's the one you're working on. Specialty is going along pretty well. And you got range, attack, range bonus, so that looks good. Okay, you've got a lot more civilization on your archer, so that seems to be your main focus here. See, this is the same thing, like 22.2, 22.8%. They look like high numbers, but for civilization, they're not. You want to be a lot closer to 30%. So you should see things like 28%, 28.5%. Those are worth keeping. But 22, 22.8, like those are, for civilization gear, they're pretty low. These are all pretty low as well. Yeah, so refinement is the biggest deal here. You really need to work on your refinement. Yeah, that's a huge improvement area for you. You may not have a siege. unless I skipped it. Yeah, you may not have a siege set up. Is this going to be your assistant? Well, you've got... I'm not sure. Okay, that's about it for your generals. So recap, your refinement just has to be improved. That's just refining all those generals is going to double your success in terms of PvP capability. Like, it's not going to stop you from failing against really strong players, but it's going to improve your success against equally sized players. And setting up your wall general as well is going to make you more defensible. So that is definitely a huge area to improve. And of course, your troop count at 1.6 billion are pretty small. Let's take a look at your Dragon Cliff. So you've got Norway Ridge, and you've got, okay, so you got Wonder 2 unlocked. That's pretty good. I was not expecting Wonder 2, so that's good. It looks like it was pretty recent because your generals are fairly new. Okay, so this one, same thing, you need to refine. 14.9 seems okay, and that would be okay on like Fafnir, because it's a lower tier dragon. But here it goes up to 20%, so you want to be pushing that closer to 20%. And whatever stats you decide to go with. So your Thebes is on George Dewey, that's good. You don't have Norway Ridge applied to anything. You should probably put that on your Elise, is what I'm thinking. So it's mainly focused on ground, and it looks like you have not refined as well, so you need to work on the refinement there as well. Let's take a look at your dragons over at the pasture. So you got your demon, who's level 5. And I would expect these ones to be a little further developed. Like they're at the same point as your Wonder Dragon, so you need to feed them a bit more. But for players that are your size, that can be very difficult in terms of materials. It'll come as you go. You have a lot of interesting choices for your refining on this dragon. You have it equipped on Electra. You probably want to be buffing your archer stats rather than your march speed. March speed is, I mean, it's not useless, but I mean, you could just speed up troops rather than put march speed on here, and that will allow you to increase your march or your archer stats, which is a whole lot more important. Your Fafnir has better choices in terms of refining, and I think it caps at 15%, so some of those are pretty good. 14.8, lock that in, keep that. Like, it's not, they're not overall bad, but like I said, for the first couple, you want to be pickier. So I would still, I mean, you're not going to get another Fafnir, so you might as well push it to the limit. 14.8, 14.7, 13.9, like those are worth keeping. Every couple percents are a little bit, I mean, everything adds up. So a couple percent here, 5% there, it adds up to being a pretty significant number. So you want to be very picky with your refinement. Okay, let's look at your buildings overall. It looks like you are working on your pasture and your research factory. I'm guessing you're working on your research factory because of, yeah, because it might be what you're needing for Keep 37. I can't remember. But it looks like you're almost ready for Keep 37. But you probably should be focusing your resources right now on building up your troop count a bit, unless you're somebody that drops their bubble often. Like if you're very consistent with your bubbles, then I would work on your troop count instead and getting that tier 14 unlocked. It'll be a lot more effective. But if you are somebody that isn't so great with bubble management, then buildings are definitely the right choice. Let's take a look at your in-city tiles. Okay, so if you are a player that has a lot of alts, like I don't know how you are, but if you have a lot of alts, if you have like 4, 3, 4, 5, 6, or even more alts, then in-city production in your main city is not very important. What's more important is army camps. If you're a player that has only 1 or 2 or no alts, then you want a lot of in-city production. But if you're not, and you do have access to resources beyond that, which is pretty much most of the players in the game, then you're going to want to demolish a lot of these buildings, focus on maybe one resource type, like it looks like you have a lot of mines, maybe focus on that and get rid of other ones, and then get as many army camps as you can and build that up, because you're going to have a higher training speed and higher training capacity, which will help you pump out those troops faster, which is one of the things you need to work on for sure, is improving that troop count. Okay. And if you had unlimited speeds, it's not that important, but like several billion power of troops is what you need, and that's going to consume a lot of speeds. So definitely put in those army camps if you can. Okay. What were you missing for your tier 14? I think it was siege, right? Okay, your workshop here is at 33. So that should be a priority. Get that up. And let's look at your subordinate cities. Okay, right now you're set to Europe because you're building. Okay, Korea. So it's not really a PvP setup right now from what I see. You've got a couple PvP ones. You've got some economy ones. It's kind of a mishmash. That's okay for now because you're really growing, right? Your focus right now is going to be training troops and building those buildings up that you need to unlock your tier 14 and to, building those army camps. So it's fine to be on Europe and China and those. They're not bad at all for the time being. In the far future where you actually have those troops, you're going to want to switch to probably Japan's, or in the worst case, Russia's. And you've got a couple pieces there, a couple cities there that are decent. Oh, but you're also at 9 out of 8, so maybe you had a recent server merge and you went down ranking, so you can't swap those out. Okay, so that's a tricky one. What else can we look at? We can take a look at your research. So you've gotten your academy up to 36, so you started to work on that new tree, which is good. And you're working your way through that. Nice. Let's take a look at your military advance. Okay, so there's a lot in here that you're going to be wanting to work on, like your debuffs and your attacks. So if you're working on defense advance, that's good. This is the other focus area, is to improve all of these. It's the same thing with refining. You just want to improve those buffs as much as possible. Don't worry about things like you put a little bit too much energy into range troop training and mounted troop training. Like it's not necessary right now to go beyond the absolute minimum. You should be focusing more on things like this, right? Range troop attack, siege machine attack. Okay, I see that you did that with the mounted, which is good, but you got to do all your troop types and also all of the debuffs. You want to get those maxed out as well. Those should be priority. That tree, not as important. That tree's not as important. You've got 9 sub-cities, so I would expect that you have all this stuff maxed out. Which tree is it? Was I on the wrong tree? Yeah, I meant to be in here. So you got your in-cities. Okay, that looks okay. Let's go back to military. This looks good. Okay. All right. So in terms of research at the academy, defense advance, work on that, and the military advance, definitely have to work on that. Your Military Academy is only at level 1, so there's not going to be a whole lot here that we can talk about. Looks like it's just recently unlocked, so you already know that you need to be working on these. And what you want to focus on is, pushing your way down so you can unlock the squadrons, which are going to be more effective than some of the other ones, but more costly as well. And only get the minimum of the additional things to proceed. So things like, what does outflank do? No. Those are all fine. That's defense. Why can't I find any? Okay, things like Wild Hunt. When you see something that isn't PvP related, it's not a direct increase to your stats for your actual troops, then just get the minimum to go forward. Right? You need to really focus, because it's hard to get through this stuff. It's hard to get through the Military Academy. It takes a lot of tactic scrolls, a lot of gold. So definitely make sure that you are focusing on the important ones and you're not just going through and maxing everything out. Okay. I don't think I looked at your subordinate city generals, your mayors. I don't usually look at that. This is your market. Okay. I don't usually look at these, but I want to definitely look for you. Achaemenid, you've got full set there. Good. Full set there. So you already know what you're doing. You're working on your Achaemenid. You're not quite complete, so you needed to get a couple more finished out. You've got a lot more crafting to do to max these out, and that's going to make a big difference. I mean, the debuffs that you get from Achaemenid are pretty significant. So the 2-piece and the 4-piece set bonuses are useless, but the 6-piece, that minus 15 on each of your sub-cities, is going to be crucial. So definitely put a priority there on your crafting. Okay. So overall, what are some of the recaps here? You need to work on your troop count. You need to unlock that tier 14 siege. You need to, well, you don't need to, but if you decide to do a trap build after you work those upper layers a little bit, then you're going to be wanting to push out your choice of either ground or mounted and focus the refining for your wall general on flat numbers, whole numbers for that troop type. In terms of your PvP generals, you definitely need to work on refining. That's huge. And you have so many refining stones. You got tons of gold to do it right now. It's just putting in the grunt work. You need to get that done. It's so important. Same thing with your dragons. They need to be refined better. You could put in a lot more army camps if you have alts. If you don't, then it's fine. What else? Your research, that military tree, military advanced tree, you need to work on that. And in terms of building, unlock that tier 14 siege as soon as possible. And the rest looks about fine. I'd also recommend probably putting a pause on upgrading your keep unless you are a frequent bubble dropper, because you're going to want to get those troop counts up so you can participate more effectively in PvP and battlefields and so on, reach higher scores, and potentially get more rewards in the long term. And I think that's about it. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching this video and supporting the channel. If you liked what you saw, please consider hitting the like button and checking out other videos on The Miser's Guide to Evony. I'll see you in the next video.